Let's talk more about the challenges that we're facing with AI in the future. So I think we talked about the kill switch, in the case that AI takes over in a way that we don't want it to take over. There's also bad actors using AI in a way that is damaging to us, to national security. But there's also probably more tangible things like energy and water. And I know you made that point. Can you emphasize more on that, on the energy aspect of it?
The AI models consume a lot of energy. It's a well-known fact. In fact, there are a lot of analogies, but the analogy that immediately comes to my mind is that training a large language model like ChatGPT, for instance, produces probably more carbon emissions than for the entire life of a car. And answering one query is can take the same amount of carbon emissions that result from watching like 5 to 120 videos on YouTube, movies on YouTube. So that's a lot of energy.
That's because all the searching of the ChatGPT is doing to figure out the information, right?
Yeah. So the model itself, if we take the original version of ChatGPT, for instance, it had 175 billion floating point numbers in the model. Deploying that model or utilizing that many number of floating point numbers requires a lot of computation. We can argue this way or that way that the carbon emissions are causing climate change and all that. But more than climate change, what my intuition tells me that consumerism is not really good. I believe that consuming will have its effects eventually. So these large language models consume a lot of energy. Not just energy, but also water, because the computation generates a lot of heat as well. For cooling, there's a lot of need for water. So there's a lot of natural ecosystem that is being consumed to get these artificial intelligence models to run.
Anything else that you think we need to talk about as far as the potential dangers of AI?
So the biggest danger that people have been talking about is that it may go out of control. I don't think we are there yet, but there is a reason for that fear. The reason is that these models are not explainable because there are like 175 billion parameters, floating point numbers being crunched. We don't know how a decision has been produced, how an outcome has been produced. So when we don't understand the system, how can we control it? One other problem that we should probably think about is the wealth inequality. So AI is taking over a lot of routine jobs, which will be very disruptive. The routine tasks are getting taken over. So what remains for people to do is highly intellectual. That leads to fewer and fewer people getting those kind of jobs who will be making a lot of money, and the others will probably be struggling. I was reading some statistics. I don't exactly remember the numbers, but I think 25% or 10%, something like that, of us in the Bay Area are earning more than 300K, 325K, which is, whereas the others are really struggling to make their ends meet. And that is going to further widen. That wealth gap is going to further widen because of artificial intelligence.
That's a very good point. And now we're talking about these robots that are able to function pretty much to the work that a human would do as far as taking out the garbage or cleaning or something. They will probably further impact even the lower level jobs that people would be doing, I would assume.
Yes, that's right. With drones and all these new technologies coming up and artificial intelligence powering them, I think we are in for a really big change.
You come from India and you were ranked 69 in your undergraduate class out of tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of students. And also you won a a gold medal in the math Olympiad in India. Please tell us a little bit, how did you accomplish this? What is the base of your education and your philosophy that you're able to accomplish these, what most people would consider pretty amazing accomplishments?
Yes, math has been a favorite subject for me for since my childhood. And the other thing is, I believe that to a good student, everything in this universe can be a teacher. And then we need just one teacher to make a whole lot of difference. And I had that kind of a teacher when I was in the 10th grade. So that's how the journey started, and I never looked back. The good thing about math is it is very analytical, which aligns with my kind of thinking. So it's kind of natural, I believe, that my liking for math has led me to this journey, into this journey.
It's interesting you mentioned, I think there's several times I talk to people who did very well in their career because of their teacher. I talked to a musician, and she said she got involved in music and loved music because of her teacher or her coach. You know, that's a very common theme. Now you came to the US, you work in tech at Synopsys and Cisco for almost 20 years, and then you moved into teaching. Please tell us, why did you make the transition?
Yes, so teaching was always my passion. Even when I was young, I used to teach my neighbors, I used to teach my younger sister. So teaching has always been a passion. In fact, I taught an engineer. He was kind of appearing for an exam, and he wanted to brush up his knowledge of some engineering subjects. So he was many years older to me. So I trained him, and he was very impressed. He said, I have that knack of putting things in the right way that students can understand. So that confirmed my belief that I'm a good teacher. So I used to take up part-time teaching every now and then whenever I got a chance, even in India. And then when I came here, I came to know that PhD plays a big role in becoming a teacher, a professor. So I pursued my PhD. Then as soon as I got my PhD, I started teaching part-time at San Jose State University as a lecturer in computer engineering department. I really liked the experience, and the students liked my teaching as well. So it was a win-win situation, and then I decided, why not try this full-time, because I'll have more time for research that way. Teaching wise, it's whether it's part-time or full-time, I started teaching 2 courses initially. But the full-time opportunity helped me move into research. That's a big thing. And then service. So in the industry, there's not much of credit given for service to the community, service to the subject, to the profession as such. Whereas in academia, that's a given. I mean, we are supposed to contribute to the profession. So that's what lured me into full-time teaching. There was this opening that came up in applied data science department. So I applied to that, and after the interviews and all that stuff, I got selected, and so far the going has been good.
What would you say is the most satisfying thing about teaching?
So there are many elements, but if you want the most satisfying element out of all those, I think training the next generation of workforce is probably the best reward that I have, I derive from this profession. And the other thing is staying with the young people makes me young as well. And the intellectual environment is really stimulating to the mind and body as well.